evolution, a deliberate yet subliminal process for all but humankind. We cannot wait.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
He's on the move. That's cool.
Making history this edition, growing water scarcity is threatening food supplies of nearly 3 billion people, as well as the stability of delicate ecosystems. Our history began with our sun. Inside, its temperature could be as high as 25 million degrees. Pressure is estimated at £1 trillion per square inch. In May of 2001, the world-famous waxworks Madame Tussauds wanted to recreate a dance pose made famous by Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers in the 40s. But they had to find 2 people to pose for them. And for more than a century, researchers at the School of Tropical Medicine in Liverpool have been responsible for some of the key discoveries in the field of tropical disease. Their most famous discovery, the transmission of malaria by mosquitoes, which they've continued to combat to this day. The problem was discussed at the Water Symposium in Stockholm, which opened on the 13th of August 2001. Currently, 450 million people in 29 countries face water shortages. The Mediterranean region, North Africa, the Middle East, Pakistan, India, China, Africa, and North and South America are among the countries under greatest danger in the future. One of the key points of discussion centered on the divide between agriculturalists and environmentalists and how water should be managed in the future. By 2025, approximately 2.7 billion people, nearly 1/3 of the world's population, will live in regions facing severe water scarcity. The United Nations Environment Programme, the World Health Organization and the Worldwide Fund for Nature were among those present in Stockholm. Dr. David Tickner is the freshwater campaign manager at the environmental group WWF. He says the problem is at a critical stage and that statistics have shown us that within the last century, water consumption has grown at about twice the rate of population growth. Pakistan is a country so desperate for water that officials are even examining the possibility of melting their glaciers. With rains continuing below normal and the nation's reservoirs less than half full, the military government of General Pervez Musharraf has asked the National Weather Office to look at the possibility of melting the glaciers in their northern mountains. The Meteorological Department believes that by spraying some black carbon on the snow, the glaciers will absorb more radiation and the snow melt can be increased by 10 or 15%. However, there are pitfalls in speeding up the melting rate of glaciers, which have been a major source of water each spring and summer for millennia. Local political and religious parties have staged a series of protests against the water crisis, accusing the military government of withholding irrigation supplies in some areas of the province in favour of the populous central province of Punjab. The government denies the charge and says it's doing everything it can to solve the problem. Pakistan has suffered acute rain shortages, especially in the key agricultural provinces for the past 4 years. Across the border in India, the authorities have their own problems. The world-famous Himalayan glaciers Gangotri and Pindari in the northern state of Uttaranchal are fast receding due to climatic changes and increased human activity. Geologists fear that the Himalayan glaciers will disappear by 2035 if no immediate steps are taken. The impending danger of losing the glaciers has alarmed conservationists who say the Pindari Glacier has shifted by about 1 kilometre. A geological survey of the northern city of Lucknow reveals that Gangotri Glacier slid back 10 metres every year between 1935 and 1956, while between 56 and 95 it shrank by 27 to 30 metres and by a further 76 metres between 1996 and 99. At about 7,000 metres above sea level, the 32-kilometre long and 2.5-kilometre wide glacier has turned into a mass of snow due to increasing global temperatures. The depleting glacier has also been a major concern for the local population, and especially hermits who have set up hermitages in the remote Himalayan region. Aside from global warming, the main reason for the depletion of the glaciers is the increasing flow of tourists. Thousands of people visit the area each year and inadvertently pollute the environment, according to the chief of the Gangotri Conservation Project. The Uttaranchal government has now drawn up an action plan to save the glaciers. It has also set up a committee of experts to advise it on the issues and control tourist activities in the region, in the hopes of protecting the environment. Space exploration, so far, has been centered on our corner of the universe, our solar system. To explore and understand our solar system, we should begin with the Sun. Inside, its temperature could be as high as 25 million degrees. Pressure is estimated at 1 trillion pounds per square inch. Man has been fascinated by the Sun since the beginning. In ancient Britain, the Druids built a mysterious monument to it. In Egypt, the sun was worshipped as a deity, and its passage from day to night was sanctified. The Mayans offered sacrifices to the sun. For the Aztecs, it measured time. Some artists reproduced it in colourful stones and gold. Others captured its mysterious quality on canvas. Children see it as a smiling face. It is the source of bounty, and, as in parts of Africa, an element of devastation. Early man brought the sun down from the sky to within his reach. Modern man journeys upward to understand it. Still, it remains a mystery. To many of the ancient peoples of Earth, the sun was not the centre of the solar system. Often Earth was considered to be the centre of the universe. Here is a possible explanation of those beliefs. First, they believed we'd come out of the darkness and shed a world of mysteries and superstitious beliefs. We had to fight our way upwards towards clarity and light, to take the position we thought belonged to us, the very centre of creation. It was Claudius Ptolemaeus who devised the first complete system of the universe. Ptolemy, who lived in Alexandria around 200 AD, said this: "The Earth is the centre of the universe. The Sun and the planets turn around it in circles. Beyond the planets lies the celestial sphere of stars, which also turns around the Earth." Of course, today we know that the family of planets, asteroids and comets circle the Sun. We also know that our star is like a grain of sand on an infinite beach. There are so many stars, we can't count them all. What is the model of the structure of our Sun, this average-sized star? Some small stars do not travel in the company of other stars. Our own Sun is one of these. To the astronomer, the Sun is a vast laboratory for the detailed study of a star's structure and energy. The vertical tower of the Solar Observatory supports a heliostat mirror which tracks the sun, gathers its rays and reflects them down a light shaft that extends 300 feet below ground. At the end of the shaft, the rays are cast back to an observing room where minute-by-minute changes across the face of the sun are observed. Another mirror projects a light beam to a spectroscope, an instrument that splits the light into its component colours, a visible spectrum. The dark lines that cut across the spectrum band are produced by the radiation from the sun's interior, shining through its atmosphere. Each line is the signature of a chemical element, such as sodium, iron, calcium. It's this array of lines that forms the code which describes the properties and motion of a star. By narrowing the view of the sun to a single line of the spectrum, each level of the solar atmosphere can be photographed, and each reveals a remarkably different aspect. And with the addition of computer mapping and colour processing that distinguishes levels of brightness, a detailed and multidimensional picture is obtained of the sun undergoing dramatic and turbulent change. The sun is a sphere of hot, seething gases and surges of radiation. Most of the light we get from the sun comes from a thin, bright layer which defines its visible edge, the photosphere. Above it, the chromosphere, a region of flaming outbursts of gas, extends through a transition zone to the thin outer atmosphere of the corona. Once thought to be a quiet layer of the solar atmosphere, the corona is now revealed to be a region of dramatic, large-scale changes and unexpected turbulence, with temperatures reaching millions of degrees. Deep beneath the sun's atmospheric shell is the core, a violent nuclear furnace. Here, hydrogen is fused into helium, and in the process, some of the matter is converted into an enormous amount of energy. Radiating outward as a gas, it convects like a boiling liquid beneath the surface. A turbulent, bubbling motion is visible in the granular cells of the photosphere. Sunspots, regions of intense magnetic fields, appear on the surface. They disappear in a few hours or grow and persist for months in a mysterious 11-year cycle. The sun rotates once in 27 days. Because its equatorial regions rotate faster than the polar caps, the shearing action in the gas contorts the magnetic field into tangled structures which give rise to the sun's eruptive action. Shaped by these magnetic fields are the spectacular prominences, titanic streamers of gas reaching more than 500,000 miles above the surface. The greatest explosions in the solar system are flares, intense bursts of light erupting with the force of millions of hydrogen bombs. They move at hundreds of miles a second, then, after minutes or hours, they fade away. The dark areas across the solar disk are coronal holes, which may provide new clues to the sun's interior, and may be a source of the solar wind, which blows outwards to the farthest planets. On Earth, the effects of these solar events are visible when auroras light up the dark Arctic sky, and radio communication is disrupted. The Sun is an average middle-aged star, yet it will generate heat and light for billions of years to come, as it has for 5 billion years past. It dominates the motion of all bodies in the solar system. And then came the Skylab flights. The 3 Skylab missions in the 1970s provided more knowledge of our Sun than all of the previous history of mankind. And we'll look at the Skylab flights in coming editions of Making History.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
If you'd ever wanted to be immortalised in wax, this was your chance. In 2001, top tourist attraction Madame Tussauds opened a new 1.5 pound Premier Night area as a tribute to the world's stars of past and present. And sculptors at the Wax Museum were seeking real-life models to pose as screen legends Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. The wax models will take prime position among a star-studded list of other Hollywood wax celebrities in their new Premier Night exhibit. The scene is set in a glitzy hotel foyer and emulates all the glamour of showbiz. The new exhibit hosts all the contemporary Hollywood A-list stars like Brad Pitt, Steven Spielberg and Michael Jackson, as well as all those legends of yesteryear like Marilyn Monroe, Humphrey Bogart and soon-to-be Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. All the dancers took to the dance floor to strut their stuff.
I can't go wrong, a tender song, and she'll discover my charms. Some fancy taps, and she'll collapse and fall right into my arms. Get him. I'll capture her heart singing. Oh, no, you haven't a chance when I go into my dance.
The judges had a very tough job. As well as body shapes, they had to consider if the couple was fit enough to withstand the rigorous job of holding position. But after some deliberation and wringing of hands, Richard and Jenny Funnell were announced as the winners.
And the winning couple is Richard and Jenny Funnell.
Here she comes down the street. My, oh my, ain't she sweet? Why, here comes my hot
Fred and Ginger immortalised at last.
body. I'll capture her heart singing. Just wait until she gets a load of my dancing.
Liverpool is a city built on maritime trade. It's still a major container port, but a century ago Liverpool was the busiest port in the British Empire after London. The numbers of sailors who returned to Liverpool from voyages to the tropics suffering from strange diseases led to their employers, the major shipping companies, banding together to set up an academic institute to look into the problem. The result was the School of Tropical Medicine, set up in 1898. It was the only institute in the world at the time dedicated to the study of this branch of medicine. Over the years, the school has been at the heart of research into the cause and transmission of tropical diseases. Equally important has been its role as a teaching and training institution. The school's first director was Sir Ronald Ross, who discovered that malaria was transmitted by the Anopheles mosquito. Ross won Britain's first Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1902 in honour of his groundbreaking research. The long struggle against malaria, putting laboratory research into practical use, has been plagued by the ability of the parasite to mutate and fight back. Some researchers in Liverpool are using the latest genome mapping technology to find ways to prevent mosquitoes from transmitting the disease. The school recently announced that the whole genome of the most important malaria-transmitting mosquito, Anopheles gambiae, will be sequenced. The vast amount of information that will soon be gathered in the process should lead to new control methods, and the work could have implications well beyond malaria. Yellow fever, dengue, and filariasis are all tropical diseases spread by mosquitoes. Other groups are tackling malaria further down the line. This is how cerebral malaria kills people. The parasites literally block the blood vessels in the brain of victims. Researchers are looking at how the parasites invade cells and cause them to stick to the walls of blood vessels, eventually blocking them. According to senior lecturer Alistair Craig, the next step would be to create vaccines in order to build up the body's natural immunity to fight malaria. The idea is to make a treatment which, unlike the expensive anti-parasitic drugs on the market, could really help the 1 million children who die each year of malaria, mostly in the world's poorest countries. The Liverpool School is also involved in the Malaria Consortium, an initiative to help countries set up malaria prevention programs using simple but proven methods like insecticide-impregnated bed nets. Lymphatic filariasis is a disfiguring disease caused by a thread-like worm and spread by mosquitoes. In 80 countries, the disease affects 120 million people, often causing gross deformity to the legs in women and in the scrotum in men. With the help of the World Health Organization, an international cost-effective program has been set up to eliminate the disease, starting with Tanzania. Over 500 students drawn from 65 countries come to Liverpool each year for training. The students shown here are all practicing doctors taking the course in tropical medicine and hygiene. Professor Marcel Hommel is developing computer-based learning packages for students in developing countries who can't afford the costs of studying in Europe. Part of a large grant to combat malaria from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation will set up training centres for doctors in Gambia, Tanzania, Malawi and Ghana. Liverpool is working on designing computer training packages for use in these centres. The school's agenda as it enters its second century is to maintaining a balance between research, training and health service consultancy work. The aim is to make sure the best of the world's research into tropical diseases gets translated into treatments that are available to and affordable for the bulk of the world's population that live in areas prone to these diseases. Please join us next time when once again we'll be showing you who and what is making history.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Is on the move.